Okay, so we are live. We are live. We're live. We're live. Whew. And I am here with Coco Noma. Welcome, Coco. Welcome to Warriors of Light. How are you feeling today?
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. And I have shared with you the not easy time that I am going through, but I guess this is how important this mission work is, that despite whatever that is happening, I had to show up. And it makes me respect the space even more. And it makes me convinced that this is something big that is being built. And I bless your project, Gogo, with more lights and with more expansion, as it is about that. It's about, helping and giving a gift to those who find themselves in the process of ascension, and they are confused, they are scared, and we basically, creating a platform where they can find hope, they can find light, and so it must grow and grow as we grow and expand and evolve as well. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Coco, for saying yes and for showing up right now. I feel it's in alignment with today's topic of the stages of ascension, because these stages, as we'll be exploring them, a lot of them exist through being in the void and having to feel certain emotions that, typically we prefer not to feel them, but, you're going through loss, which is a big theme for us in the last 2 years, grief as well. And there's just been that energy of like continuing even as we're moving through these experiences. And I just really appreciate and honor you for coming through, even when you're going through loss in your life right now. Yeah, it is truly how the ascension process is. It's a lot of like moving through the murky waters and showing up even when you're going through the murky waters. So thank you so much, Coco, for showing up once again and blessing this library of consciousness that we're building. This is Warrior of Light. We are really building we're archiving spiritual philosophies, we're archiving spiritual methodologies, technologies to support those who are on an ascension path, an organic ascension path, the genetic path cutters, who in Southern Africa, we like to call them Bana Babadimo, those who are here for weaving a new pathway for the bloodline, for the collective genetics of the human race, the human species, and those who are here to heal and to support others in that healing. I'm really excited about this topic today because it's really at the core of this library, which is Ascension.
Wow.
And we're going to be, we're going to be breaking down this,
Just me to choose core.
So it's like the best, it's ideal to start with it. So we bless your guidance for this guidance. Yes. So Coco, I was telling you before that I feel like it would be ideal to just start with like a grounding, a brief grounding, because the energies our heart are a little sore right now, but we're gonna do this.
We'll be okay. Let's go for it, Coco.
Okay, so I will do, and if you feel like you want to add something, you can feel free to do that when I have a pause.
Okay.
It's
fine. I'll leave it to you.
You give, okay. Yeah. So let's do that. This day, this week, this new month, this year has been a year of evolution, of growth, of healing. And today we come here together as fellow spiritual warriors of light. And we come to the space for contemplation, for meditation, for revelation of truth, for remembrance of who we really are. And for this moment in time, we would like to bless the space and to bless and consecrate this sacred space with the healing, heliotellic, pastel, silvery tones of the higher heavenly worlds, as we request the divine dispensation and the anchoring of all that is the pure essence, the primordial ancestor, our source creator, the source of our genesis. We're anchoring into the space, the Holy Mother, the Holy Father God, and anchoring to the space, the luminous ancestral helping spirits, anchoring to the space, the Christed guardians and our support team that are working with us, with every single human who's going to watch this, who listens to this transmission. And we invite into the space our own inner core essence, the inner spirit, the inner woman, inner man, our avatar, Christ itself. We're inviting the activation of the Holy Trinity to awaken within our cells, within our blood, our bones, our roots, within our DNA, as we align with the mind, the body, and the spirit, the highest frequency, the Siddhic frequencies, as we allow ourselves to tap into our ancestral keys, our divine keys, our master keys, our jewels, our gene keys, so we may come into greater understanding of the shadows, greater understanding of our gifts, greater understanding of the city. And we come here for righteousness, for restoration, for reparation, for resurrection of truth, of wisdom, of divine authority, divine will, which we align ourselves with. And for the inorganic frequencies that are moving within us, that are connected to us, through any inorganic timeline, any phantom timelines, we're requesting through the law of consent, the complete collapse, release of these energies, these frequencies, down into earth core, so that Aurora Guardians may clear this from the earth frequencies. The inner FBA may support in the clearing and the healing of this. We come here to bring into the table the understanding and our emotions, our mourning, our grief, our loss, our pain, our sadness, our depression, our overwhelm, our anxiety. We return this to the higher guidance within our being and the higher guidance of those who support us, the benevolent, positive frequencies that are within the organic timeline, within the organic ascension and alchemy. We're requesting the support, the divine authority of the sacred masculine, the divine grandfathers, and the divine wisdom of the divine feminine, our divine grandmothers, to walk with us, to support us, to ground us in this day. And we request the activation of the 12 base tree of life, so that this knowledge that we're sharing here may be in alignment with the highest truth that is alive within us, that is moving and transmitting through our vessels as the current living generation that is here. And we would like to seal the space with the seal of Source God Creator, the Most High God, and the seal of the divine masculine, the Christed energy, Christos Christ, and the seal of Ma Nala, Ma Mwenti, Ma Sophia, the sacred feminine, or Holy Spirit. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is.
So
Ashe, Makosi.
That was so beautiful, Gogo. I definitely feel a lot lighter. Thank you so much. And I received a message as you were going in, and I'm like, okay, interesting. Yes, so I want to write it down, and I'm going to tell you just now what it is.
Yes. Okay.
So, yeah. So in which was like towards the end of my talk, I talk about, quantifying the stages, and the very first stage is the initiation. I'm just sharing what I just received. And as I was channeling the message earlier on, it was very much linked to star seeds, and it was so for star seeds, it's involuntary. The initiation process, I can almost say it happens automatically. And I was struggling to find and explain how it will happen for those who are not. And I've just received a message to say the initiation for those who are not of star seeds origin happens through our words. So exactly what we are doing now as we are having this conversation, and someone who's listening who needs to be embarking on the journey, as they are listening to our voice, we carry the light code of their initiation to happen. So I'm just saying, this is how big this space is. And, and yes, I've just received this message, and I understand why it is important for all of us that you have invited to show up, because we literally speaking initiation to those that are listening to us. Yeah, so can we get on with it, Gogo? Can we get into the things?
Yes, but yeah, I mean, before we get it, I love what you are saying, because I mean it's really in resonance with quantum mechanics, which is part of Ascension, which you would jump into and break down. But as you're saying this, I'm just I started to remember earlier today, I saw a video of some Gomas who were dancing in the land, right? And I understand that through sound, whether that's words, that's music, that's song, we are actually weaving light codes into either the lens through us dancing in the lens, or us having this transmission, this conversation. And through that, we're able to elevate the consciousness of the earth, if we also understand that we are not only just fractals of God, but we're also fractals of the soul of Mother Earth. We are literally Sophia. We are literally Mam Wenti, the earth. So when we are dancing in her, when we're speaking as her cells, because we are like her cells, we are literally awakening other cells, even if those cells are originally the earth seeds, who are from here, who have the memory of the earth. They will also awaken because we have become part of that. Right? Yeah. So yeah, just I thought that also.
You get me. I
get you. So I'm bouncing back on what you're saying. But we're talking Ascension today. I'm really excited about this. As I told you, as it's like a core essence of my work and core essence of this transmission, right? So I want us to jump in, and we're going to jump in. Yes, the people who are likely going to listen to this are already on an ascension journey. And but it's always very good and like important to remind ourselves, but what is this ascension we're speaking about, right? So let's start all the way there and take us on this beautiful journey, Coco.
Indeed, it is a beautiful journey. And I actually smiled in one of the statements that you made. Is actually the one sentence for me on what ascension is. And for me, it is coming back to self. That's essentially what it is, and because when we use words, we Gogo, one of the things I'm coming to realize is how words can be so limiting, and how words can easily cause a confusion in people trying to comprehend, spirit things because of their limitation. So when we're talking about ascension, because it is a word that suggests that you're going up and going higher, and living in a society where going up and going higher is associated with statusism. You go up the rank, you go up the corporate ladder, you go, and it is so easy for people to misalign this ascension process or think it's the same thing as that, where else it's not. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of the spiritual ego that becomes an impediment, when you associate that type of movement with the one that is being used in this world. But it's actually a coming back to self. You have nicely just explained to us, as it is above, so it is below. So we are one with cosmic, but we are one with earth, and earth being below. And when you understand that, it's going up and in, it's going up and in. So which is the flow in your chakra systems as well. So it's never about I'm going up, I want to go up. And so I think it's very important that we have that understanding and right at the beginning that ascension is not about you are climbing the spiritual corporate ladder. If anything, it actually makes you less desiring of being above or going up or and being higher than other people. So it's the opposite of that. And so the question that I asked was, okay, so why did I leave myself? I mean, if you're going to tell me that I'm coming to myself, why on earth did I leave myself, for starters? So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But I also want to say that, the ascension process is a beautiful process, but it's not just roses and rainbows and angels and unicorns. There is, like everything else, there's the bad, the good, and the ugly. But as I was writing this, I actually even realized that some of the things that we might even think or call bad and ugly, it's even the wrong terming again, because of what we've been conditioned to think. So as we were sharing earlier on, through my loss, I was triggered to go back to something that I did not do properly. And therefore, can I completely say I'm going through a terrible time? Can I completely say what I'm experiencing is bad? And the answer is no, because it is out of this darkness that a new birth or a new light came through in terms of something that is so profound and so deep for me that I had not looked at, and which is, by the way, the Scorpion season that we are at. So we're all going to be going through some, going dip, and receiving messages on things that we left behind that we did not perhaps process properly at that point in time. And so we have, I just want to quickly talk about what we call the dark night of the soul before I get into the rose part of ascension. And I want to talk about this because I really want people to have a different view on this, as opposed to it being the ho-ho and the scary thing that most writers will depict it as. And as I've just made an example with my current experience, that when you shift and you have an eagle's view into things, you are able to see the blessings in disguise. You are able to see the silver lining in that dark cloud that you find yourself in. And for me, that is what the dark night of the soul is about. So this is when, the truth about the dark night, Gogo, is that you now separate between conditioning and reality. And the process might be painful because, it is hectic, because it even has, it has psychological, emotional, and physical manifests that will happen to you because of this huge outpour of energy that is coming through. But what is really happening during the dark night of the soul is that you come to a realization that that which you've been conditioned to think was actually not truth. And you then are forced to find or to look at the truth. And it becomes a discomfort during the process, but you thank yourself after that because it is so worth it. Because let me make some example when we're talking about distortions, it's small things such as what's being sold to us. So I figure distortions comes mostly through these three vehicles, one being the media. What the media tells us, is what life should look like. And secondly, the biggest vehicle is religion and culture. There's a big agenda in terms of defining what life should be there. And so I call it religion and culture, but this is really only for the African part, because for African people, because there was a moment where our religion was separated from our culture type of a situation. But with other, like the Indians, for example, if you're Hindu, being Hindu is culture and religion for you, if you know what I mean, if you're Muslim. So there's no separation. You typically find that separation with us as African people. And then the childhood events that takes place are kind of like the driving force that dictates what happiness should look like. And so it's these are the main spaces where really conditioning happens. And I was actually given some very funny examples in terms of how silly these things can get. So as silly as having been brainwashed to think that if you don't drive a car, your life is incomplete. And the irony is that African people have walked all the time. They walked to everywhere. And now what is happening is the people that have sold us the cars are telling us that walking is healthy, and that because we are not walking enough, we're developing diseases. And now all of a sudden, we now need to correct that and find ways to be going to the gym, something that we never used to do, we didn't need to do, because the way in which we were engaging with life on a daily basis took care even of our physical well-being. There was no such a thing as going to the gym. There was no such a thing as going into a diet, because even the kind of food that we ate and how we prepared the food, the organic way of living was serving our holistic well-being. And so things were sold to us and we bought into those things, and the very things that were sold to us are turning out to be actually poison to us. And so it's what we're facing, and with religion and culture, what I have picked up as interesting happenings there is the structure. So there's a big emphasis on certain members of a group benefiting more than the others. That is big within those two systems. So that you can never have equal sharing of things. There's always going to be a certain group that needs to be above. But what is even more sad is the fact that separation is almost like the key thing. So separation in terms of a big emphasis on the process. So trust me, there are good principles that you will find in all the religions. There are beautiful, life principles that are aligned to the universal laws that Umkhulu spoke about that other day, that you will pick up in the different religion groups. Same even with the culture. But I guess the disconnect is the emphasis on the processes of applying these universal laws to a point of people willing to kill those who do it differently, and this big conviction that my way of doing things is the only correct way of doing it, and therefore intolerance and even hatred to those that are journeying differently to how I'm journeying, which I find as a big thing in those two institutions. So it's actually very, very similar between culture and religion. And that's where you give birth to religious wars, cultural wars and clashes, etc., etc. So as I was saying, this dark night of the soul is a blessing in disguise because it really pushes you to move away from all those conditions. So I don't want to go deep in terms of what those things are. But what I also picked up is when we talk about ascension, because people align it to I am climbing up the corporate ladder, and therefore what it means is it's bad things that I was doing, and so I'm now moving towards doing good things, and which is also not 100% correct, because ascension is not about bad and good, because those are the polarities. Everything has got two polarities, but it's about moving to yourself, to who you are and not what you are. Okay, so I'll make an example with myself. So I mean, I had a good life. I was raised in a very good family. I chose very nice families. Both my maternal and paternal families are really beautiful families. And so I was raised well. I was always mannered. I did well in school. I started working very early. I got married very young, and I got married for many years. And I was married to a pastor, and I was in church. So at a face value, my life looked perfect. And but it was not who I was. It was what I was. And so when the transformation or the dark night of the soul happens and you actually initiated it, it's even more excruciating, because rest assured, everybody is going to hate you. Because now here I am, in the eyes of people, I have an ideal life and I have an ideal marriage, but these are people who don't reside with me. These are people who are not in my home and actually get to see how is the relationship, what is the foundation of that relationship? Because some of the relationships are purely karmic relationships, so that we can learn and unlearn what we are here to do. But at a face value, things may look very good, when people look at it, and including your family. And when you tell them that you are moving away from that was with church as well. I mean, I've been in church since I was born. And I was not just a church member. I've been in leadership since my youth days. Church was my life. Church was my home. It was my everything. And when I knew that I knew, so that is why I'm saying, which I will talk about later, when you're a starseed, the activation and the initiation kind of like happens automatically, or you set yourself reminders in terms of when you need to move to the next stage. So what I'm trying to say, Goko, is I did not have tangible reasons to leave from an earthly point of view. Within the matrix system, my life was perfect. And so there was no reason that could make logic sense to anyone to explain why these spaces are no longer serving me, why these spaces are no longer working for my highest good, and how these spaces are actually suffocating me from becoming and coming back to self. So it can be a very tricky and very lonely journey to travel. And I guess, if you read and you listen to what people talk about, it's typically what others also experience when they need to go for their epiphyreal initiation. There's never a support from their family, and especially your Christian families, where these conversations never happened. I mean, Minikaya, we never even went in Pepo and say, we're talking to our ancestors. The word idlozi, our ancestors, was non-existent in my house, and here I am coming with these concepts, and everybody is thinking you are crazy. So you prepare to journey alone for quite some time, and that is the separation wound for a lot of starseeds, because even when we arrive here, there isn't much acceptance. There's always a big element of rejection. Some of us, we're not raised by our parents, or the one parent leaves, or and then the step parents don't want us, or you're raised by your grandmother. But there's always a distortion in terms of how you land and how you arrive. Being a child that you are celebrated, and a child that everybody's waiting for. You don't land like that for most healers. So so that's I want to raise this, because I'm talking to to people, because there's this conception that when you're going through ascension, you're gonna start losing things, that will happen automatically. It's our paths are very different, and it is the deep knowing that is inside of you, that will let you know that something needs to change and something needs to happen. And so it's not always going to be your ancestors that are initiating the process, but when the moment comes to you, for those of us who volunteered to say we will come here and anchor and assist the human race through their ascension processes, that is the big step, you leaving, and not you being pulled out. So it's very, very it's a very traumatic stage. I'm not gonna lie, because it's this intense energy that is poured in you. So when we're having, when we have these euphoric in conjunction with spiritual activations that are beautiful, when you have the spiritual activation, we just did one now, and we were having our hearts, but now we're feeling light, we're feeling joy, we're feeling happy, energy is able to do that to us. But during this process, you're getting the same amount of injection, but only it comes with a lot of discomfort, it comes with a lot of anxiety, it comes with a lot of pain, and it comes with a lot of fear, because almost everything that was your foundation, you literally watch it crumble down, and you literally get removed from things that you thought were your core foundation, the things that you thought made you. For an example, I would even proudly say it. So I used to say, I charge from people, I'm Sagittarius. And yeah, if I'm not around people, I get depressed. And I actually used to celebrate that. And imagine having to be, so my entire life, since as a child, I'm surrounded by a lot of people, because we were a big church. And as I'm saying, I've always been in leadership roles. So I was always around a lot of people, and we made each other happy. I'm talking people that I genuinely loved, and some of them loved me back, So as I said, we don't, when we land, the typical landing of healers, really, when people come and tell me about how sad their childhood was, the mother and father wound, and I'm like, yeah, it's the story of our lives. So don't feel too special about it. That's how most healers land on earth. But so you then find the community outside of your home that becomes literally your home. And so imagine being removed from that and having the one big thing that I used to say, this is me, this is my life. When I am with people, I am with me. And that was collapsed, boom, because that was not the truth. Because the reason why I felt like that is I wanted to be accepted. I thought I was not accepted. And I thought that for me to be accepted, I had to give. So that's what happens when you are a giving. You generally attract a lot of people around you, and because they sense and they know that they're going to receive. So you might genuinely love those many people that are around you, but it's not always the same feeling from their side. And you quickly see that. That's why people will be like, singing when days are dark, friends are few, blah, 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 all those kind of things. But the thing is, it was you that, you are this beacon of light, even before you know it. And you have this beautiful aura that attracts people to you, and they feed off your energy. It's actually sad when I look back, I actually did a post when I got where I was asking for forgiveness from my children, because that's how the cycle of an absent mother continues in disguise. It looks beautiful and neat because you're doing God's work, or you're doing healing work, or you are running a business, you are an entrepreneur or whatever. It's beautified, but creating wounds to your offspring, because the core of the work that you're supposed to be doing there, you are not doing because you are so busy with this other thing. And it looks beautiful. You don't see it. I'm basically, I guess right now, I'm really talking to people that are scared to take the red pill, because their lives at a face value look beautiful. But the thing is, they know the inner woman and the inner man that you were calling during the initiation, Gogo, knows the truth, and they know that this is not who you are. You know, you are literally living a life that is not yours, and the crying is in there, but that person is so scared to do anything about it because everything else looks perfect. So what typically crumbles down are the things that you set or you were conditioned to think are the core of your existence. And so, because that's what Ascension is about, coming back to self. Who is self? Self is the I am that I am. Like, I am everything that I need. It's in me. So everything outside of myself, I do not need. And so we condition, and it comes in different forms. For other people, it's materialistic things. For some, it's being convinced, which is big going on now, Gogo. I see a lot of blogs, like people selling it, so how you must catch a man, because we were conditioned as women that if you do not have a man, you are incomplete, you know, and so people will go to extremes to keep people in their lives just so they can count, because they do not believe that they're complete. They do not believe that they are their full selves within themselves. So so this is a very intense energy process. It can also create a lot of shock, as I'm saying, you know, things you might feel like it's a loss, you know, you might feel like you're losing yourself, or you're losing your things, or you're losing people, or you're losing, you know, things that made you. So it's not easy. And it can even affect you physically, emotionally, because it's a detox, but an involuntary detox. So, you know, when you drink something to detox your system, it really like shakes your system up. Yeah. So it's something like that. But it becomes so involuntary, and you can feel extremely fatigued after the process. So why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this with somebody who is probably experiencing this, or who has experienced that, to say, we've been conditioned to think that therapy is luxury, you know, self-care is luxury, and so we don't even realize it when we are at a point where we are not coping. And because also it's a spiritual journey, we think that it is something that you need to suffer through. But I think one of the messages that are coming through right now is to explain and emphasize to people why they are therapists that are doing the work, because they are precisely here to help and support, you know, you during this time of your ascension. So because Gogo, the sad thing is other people don't make it out. It can be that intense that you get left behind, you know, or people can even go to a point of committing suicide. People can be committed into mental institution because you know, it can be misinterpreted as you really suffering, because it can it does take a toll in your mental capacity, in your emotional capacity, and your physical capacity. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of finding assistance and support during this time. So that's the first point that I wanted to talk about. Should I say the ugly? I don't know if there are questions before I proceed.
A bit. That was really expansive on Ascension. So just before we jump into the next part, definitely, just. Just debriefing on that this experience of ascension is really about the self, like returning to the self. And of course, the question is, who is the self that we are returning to, like you were asking? You know, so another way that we actually describe ascension is ascension, right? Which is about the inner spirit coming into the body, descending into the body, the Holy Spirit descending into the body, and how, like, I mean, from my perspective, I tend to see things a little bit like mechanically, like a scientist. So I do love that you were talking about like why the process seems to be messy and painful, and it seems like everything is collapsing. And at a mechanical level, it's because we are these vessels that we are, and the Holy Spirit is descending into your body, and that descension is going to be about you starting to notice all these things that are no longer in alignment with your true identity, your true self, who the real self is, right? And when the Holy Spirit comes into the physical body and it's here to anchor and materialize, everything that is not in the frequency of of the Holy Spirit has to dissolve. Hence why your life seems to dissolve. Right? So I like that you're talking about like how a lot of people have it the other way around, like it's my ancestors who are making this happen. I mean, of course, yeah, maybe in some way the Holy Spirit is making this happen, but it's not a human who's saying, I'm going to make this person's life collapse into these different, fragments that they're experiencing in their lives.
Yeah.
Right. But before you jump in, another thing that I want to I want you to just like maybe highlight, or I don't know if it will come in the stages, is the difference between organic ascension, how we are supposed to allow this to happen organically, naturally, and what inorganic ascension looks like, right? Because most star seeds, one day they do have this dark night of the soul and they do seek support, right? But it's like, what is the support we're actually supposed to be seeking originally, naturally, so that we can actually ascend naturally the way we're meant to? Or is this part of your stages?
It's the next point. So
okay.
you spot on.
Okay, there you go. Okay. Yes, tell us.
I'd like to start by giving a bit of a background as to what happened. Why this drama? Why there's so much drama with this whole ascension process? And so everybody, based on the path that they're at, will be given a theoric, glimpse into what happened into things. And so I like to talk about that which I have seen, that I've heard, and that I've touched. So I talk about my own personal experience, and I like to make reference to that, as opposed to me going to read some theory and trying to teach that to other people, And so what I was shown is that in our original state, because we need to understand when we're saying, as you said, who are we coming back to, and also understand what happened and why do we find ourselves in a situation where we now have to go through pain and anxiety and all that. So and this was what was shown, to me through channeling and through my own experiences, is that God is God source, God the living God. When we talk about creation, when we talk about create, when we say we can create, that is the vibration frequency of love, right? So when you are in the frequency of love, you are in the frequency of creation. And when we talk about light, we're talking about the frequency of truth. And so when we say love and light to each other, that's essentially what we're talking about. And so what I was shown is God is an expression of all that which was created. So, and the intention was to experience source differently. And the more there was expansion and experiments on that was the intention. So, and I was like, when I received this to my guys, I was like, that's confusing. What do they mean? What do you mean? And this is how they simplified it to me. It's like, you are Noma, right? But you are Noma in many different roles. and people can experience you differently being the same Noma. So your kids, from your children, experience you as a mother. Your colleagues experience you as a colleague. Where you are a leader, you experience as a leader. As an artist, your painting experiences you that. So you're the same person, but your experiences of yourself is different, but you become the same person. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so that was actually the intent with creation, for God's source to experience itself differently. And what I was shown, what happened is when the human race was created and Earth, it was like the most beautiful place. And trust me, it is, because where I come from, I was actually laughing when I was writing this. So I did a PhD and I was able to see, where I come from, which was serious. And it's literally a space that is purple and blue with some particles, and all what happens is we move around, we move around, and that's it. And so Earth is crazy. Earth is beautiful. The experience that you can have on Earth is to die for. There are other, beings that would love to come and experience what we experience in here. So that's what happened. So the human race was created and Earth was created, and the experience was so beautiful. Then the powers that were given to humans was also equal power. So let's create men in our own image, and make them like us. And we literally were given the powers to be on Earth and to own Earth, and to look after it. And so I was shown that there were then, because prior to the human race creation, there were angels and other things that were created. And so there were some of the angels that were not happy with that. They felt that the humans were getting too much. They felt that the humans were going to have more than what they have. And so there was too much favor, according to them, that was given to the human, and they were not happy about it. So it started as a disgruntlement, it started as a movement, and it ended up as a rebel. And they literally left God's source and became of their own. Now, the source of light and source of love and source of existence, they were disconnected from that. So these, what in my language we call fallen angels, needed to find an alternative source where they can actually continue to exist. And because the humans are gods, the humans are light, the humans are love, that was the easiest place to go and harvest for their existence. Now, we're talking about high-ranking officials here that were part of the creation program. And what they did is they were preview to the knowledge of ascension. So the original, as you were actually doing the meditation right now, I was shown. So in tarot, we have what we call the fool's journey. And the very first card, which is the 0, is the journey, is the fool. And it shows a man who's carrying a very light load, and I think he has a flower on his other hand, and he's just going about, not worrying about life, and literally coming to experience and not scared for anything. So in the card, you see there's a cliff that you might be scared that he's going to fall, but he's not worried, and which is like the divine child in us. So these fallen angels were privy to that information in terms of the true ascension. So I was shown that that's literally what was supposed to happen. We were not meant to have these reincarnations. There were no karmic lessons to be learned. There were no karmic debts to be paid. It was not the original plan that we keep coming back and we keep struggling and creating and have these ancestral traumas and whatever. What they did is they then hijacked the organic ascension process and created a false light, which is very much a big foundation in these systems that I spoke about earlier on, right? The false parent. And that is where, as I said, a lot of distortion and conditioning happens in your childhood, and it is the religion and culture where there's us and them, and and there was like a big program that was, I don't want to get technical and scientific about it, but they used part of the moon and sold the false light to people, and that's where the problem started. So we then almost became something like suffering from what we call in psychology a multi-personality disorder. So remember, I said you are you, but experienced differently. But the essence of who you are, your blueprint, your signature will be the same throughout. And when you have multi-personal disorder, as you literally become something else and someone else. And that's what happened. We became something different to the original who we were, the God source. And the more and further away that happened, the more difficult it became for us to go back to the organic ascension. And what has happened is, I don't know, there's a lot of literature that is there, but people differ, but there's an estimate, and if I look at the timelines, it even makes sense to me that roundabout when we entered the 20th century, basically, there was an intention from the cosmic beings to assist Earth to ascend, and that's when the big hula bar on the organic ascension started to happen, as Gaia has been ascending and Voyager has been ascending. So that's what happened. And you see, when we talk about ascension and we talk about when I talk about the fool's journey, as I'm seeing it now, as I'm saying, he's carrying a very light bag. So why this pain is because you cannot enter your inner course, your inner being, with all the baggage that you're carrying from the distortions. So as you correctly said, when Mother Holy Spirit comes in and you connect to the source of light, all that is not organic to you will be removed, and organic based on what conditioning is associated with that. So I just thought it will help when we have that basic understanding on what went wrong and why we find ourselves in this process. So being cut pathers, as you call it, it doesn't have to happen like that anymore. That's why we are here. I saw myself as a star when I was like, send me, I'll go. I was so excited to come and help. So when things go tough here, I am reminded, because I know I saw how willing I was to come and anchor love and balance into earth to assist humans with their ascension. So it's about that, because what needs to happen, and that's why you were led by your guides to create this, because what this essentially is we are demystifying the whole ascension program. Because I was also shown that's what happened in Atlantis when we were there, when some of us were present as priestess and priests. People started hogging knowledge to and for themselves so that they would use it for their own personal gains, and they will use it to be above others. And knowledge was lost, and things that are supposed to be natural became not, because we forgot. And the more this happened and we recycled that, the further we moved away from remembering and find ourselves at the point where we are. So when and so what happens is, when people are at a state where they now have the urge to wake up, they look at what is already available, and what is available is limited and it's not for everyone. And I will talk about that. So the coming to earth and experiencing for me is why, Gogo, I don't resonate with the notion that you are being forced to take a gift, because I've heard people say that being gifted is difficult. My ancestors are giving me a difficult gift. Islam is making me to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't resonate with that, because so what happens is, when you agreed to come, you then looked for a family that was going to assist you in fulfilling your mission. So yes, they chose you, but you chose them as well. And you came with a gift. They do not give you the gift. They do not impose the gift on you. In fact, the gift is not the big deal because there is so much emphasis on the gift. The gift is not the core. Your mission
is your
the
essence.
Core. Yes.
The gift is actually your soul essence. It's who you are.
Yes. And so it's who you are. And also the gifts that people talk about, it's the clairaudiences, the clairvoyance, they talk about that. They talk about that as the gift. Some of those gifts they are meant to help you in your journey. There are gifts that are meant to help you in your ascension journey. You know,
also, I mean, in Lyra and in Sirius, where we originally come from, that's just how people exist there. So your class senses are your natural spirit being aspects. It's like just who you are. It's not even that extraordinary, honestly. You know, but we think it is. But okay, continue, Coco. I love this so much. Yes.
Yes. So exactly, Wenagoko. So this emphasis on the magic, let's call it magic. In this earth, it's seen as magic. There is so much big emphasis on that, to a point that people are willing to go an extra mile to activate these gifts, you know, and at all costs and at any cost. And without even fulfilling the core mission on what they're here. So before I talk about the next point, okay. So what happens, Goko, is that there was what these fallen angels did. They created what we call an anti-God program, which has 3 important elements that I really would like people to be aware of, right? Which is, it's what we call the reversal mother, the reversal father, and the false parent. And the reversal mother is anti-life. The program there is about that. And that's what gave birth to the anti-female collective consciousness. Because any evolution that kills and abuses their women and children is doomed to die. You know, So that's the intention. And remember, I said the fallen angels, they harvest on the energies of humans, and how this is done is by keeping us vibrating at the lowest frequency. So and for them, that's what keeps them alive. And so they came with different programs that they were going to use. And from that gogo, that was the birth of the blood sacrifice ideology. That's where it comes from, you know, the disrespect for life, and distorted by the second program, which is the reversal father. And that is basically about patriarchic system, even telling people that killing can be done in the name of God. You know, people kill for God. People kill, they make sacrifices for their ancestors or spirits. Some say that, you know, and the thing is, which I will talk about later. It's something that I really would love a person who is very conversant with that to talk more to. But my experience and what I have realized is how easy it is for the distortion to even happen at that level, where people think they are doing rituals that their ancestors are asking for, and it's not really like that. You know, there is false light going on there, just like it is in the religion. I mean, when someone is going to kill for their God, when someone is going to kill because you are not subscribing to how they're doing, that is false light. Anything that is anti-light is not of God's source. And that goes with even how you kill the animals. We were given animals to eat. We were given vegetation, right, to eat, to use. But how you do it is a reflection on your connectiveness with everything that is created. Yes. So that's that. And so the anti-male life was about that, you know, hijacking the father principles and turning the men into monsters, into haters, into oppressors, into et cetera, basically the patriarchic system that was was born out of that program. And the false parent collective is the trauma and the conditioning that happens at a childhood level. And the typical manifestation of that program is at the sacral chakra, where you will have people struggling with all sorts of addictions that they can't get out of, which is a form of harvesting from these fallen angels that they benefit from. So I urge people to be very careful when they engage into things in the name of, this is what Idloslam wants, and I mean, some of the things are very logic. If your dose is making you do things that are harmful to your body, for me, even without even going deep about it, it just doesn't make sense. So the false parent collective conscious is a real thing, and it can be presented as your ancestors, wanting this, or your ancestors making this. I put to you, a loving parent who will not cause harm to their children. It's just like that. Yeah. Okay,
before you continue, I just want to expand a little bit on this, just to also give people another perspective. It's just also kind of connected to the last conversation I had with Baba Buntu, right? So the reversal mother is the desecration of the physical, of the body, right? Of which the body is the feminine, right? And the mind is the masculine, right? So the reversal mother is what may have been written in religion as Satanism, right? It's what's satanic, right? So anything that includes, like you said, blood ritual is satanic. It doesn't matter where, in what context it's been done, but we have to become aware of that every time we're working with blood ritual, desecration of anything physical, we're working with a satanic frequency. And that's an actual force of the fallen angelics. Like they're different from the reversal father, which is a lot. The reversal father is what we call Luciferian. Right, so the Luciferian is.
I avoided the terms. I'm glad you. I
have to avoid the terms because, like, we're building something here. I know I'm gonna have to come back and teach this again. Luciferian is the reversal father, right?
Yeah.
Which is literally. I wanted to use a word that is not appropriate for this, but it's literally messing up with the mind.
I know the word.
Luciferianism is literally at the forefront of force light. It's about saving the self, saving the identity you have, about like that, the mind has told you are supposed to be, like you tell them, and this is who you're supposed to be, and then that's what they will try to do, which is not saving them and it's not saving everyone else, right? So these are two different factions, and the third one you also mentioned that started at that level. And anyway, I just I love this because last week in the Baba Buntu conversation, we spoke about how the reversal mother and the desecration of the feminine, it's at the forefront of why we have the issues we have between women and men, and the Luciferian as well, the patriarchal system and so on. So it's just something I wanted to highlight for people here. When we are talking about, basically just literally broke down inorganic ascension, and I love it. Continue.
And taking it also to, or taking it further, or even adding to that, is it shows how important it is that when you're doing healing work, you do healing work on these both facets, your divine masculine and your divine feminine. And there's a lot of emphasis to only do divine feminine, and because it's as you said, it's earth, it's mother, it's a lot to do with with cleansing and purification. So it's physical. And people get stuck there and they leave the mind, the divine masculine behind. And guess what? You keep coming back. You keep recycling, because whatever that you bypass spiritually, either by rituals or by saying you're praying or believing and whatever, it ain't going to go if you have not healed. So I also would like to put to you that I don't subscribe in the killing of the ego. I don't subscribe to the theory of killing of the ego, because your ego is basically what helped you to exist and to make it in this planet called Earth, for the traumatic period that you've been. Your ego is what helps you differentiate between, okay, this is light, I can go and love and light, and there I can't go, because we can't be, we must be as humble as doves and as wise as serpents. So we're not going to be ignorant and put ourselves in dangerous situations in the name of we are loving and we are light. So what I'm saying is, the mind has a very important role that in your life, in structuring your life. And so when you're doing healing work, it's very important that you also do a lot of psychological healing. And so psychotherapy for me, psychospiritual therapy is actually for me the best thing. And because you heal both wells of yourself and it becomes holistic and you give birth to your divine child. That's the inevitable. So a child who is loved by mother and father is a happy child, a healthy child, a confident child. So when you bring that, that unism and that inner sacred marriage within yourself, you then really start experiencing the joy frequency. I just wanted to mention that as well, because there's big emphasis on doing the physical, and that's why people want to be extreme and do all sorts of big and sometimes scary things, because they think it's what is required for them to see the light. So the way people were sacrificing, there was a temple where they were sacrificing children, and those women believed that they were worshiping a god, and that they would receive blessings and all that. So what I'm trying to say, Napapa, is a healing methodology that is too emphasizing on the physical and on rituals and on performing this and that. People need to reconsider and look for a more, because we're asking what is organic and what is not. So, that anything that is too extreme is an indication that you might not be in the right place. So back to the topic, the ascension stages.
Let's go to the Yes, let's go to the stages, because I know this conversation is so big. But yes, I know you still have to cover the stages. So let's jump to that. And then after that, I'm inviting everyone already, if you have any questions, to do that, because actually time is not on our side. It's such
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do it.
Yes, I'm gonna quickly glide these. I just felt, Spirit felt that the background and the understanding is it's important. The stages are important, but understanding the why and the how and the when is equally important. So look, the first stage, and when I talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's really to try and quantify, right? But this is such a qualitative process, so it's not something that you want to be carrying notes and books and say, I'm on stage 1, I'm on stage 2, oh, now I'm good. People, that's not how you should approach the journey. You need to flow and be organic and authentic about it, because I don't want people being fixated because humans are funny. They have a way of finding a fixation in the process and wanting to stick to it and making the process bigger than the actual mission. So
that's the reverse, father. Let's talk about the reverse, father. Right? It's the mind.
True. Yes, it is. So it's the process is your means to the end and not your end, and that's what it's important for everybody to understand. So the first process or the first stage is what we call the initiation stage. And this is literally where you have a connection with what you termed as Holy Spirit, or divine spirit, or what is called the electromagnetic frequency wave that is from higher source. Now, as I said earlier on, for starseeds, this happens without us even being aware. I mean, as I was going through, because I can say my ascension journey was accelerated in the past 2 years, but my guides actually showed me my very first initiation was at the age of 12. And I was in church, and there was what we call the confirmation. So I was shown that's actually when, bam, the first activation happened. And it's been from the age of 12 until the age of 39. And at the age of 39, I had to make a jump. So I knew that I knew, So we each set different programs for ourselves in terms of when we now need to move to the next stage. And for me, I just knew that if I hit that number 40, when they say life begins at 40, that's literally what happened to me. I lived at 40, I breathed, and it was so interesting because what happened is, as I said, I grew up in a Christian home, and I was a good girl, and my life was flowing like that. And I remember even at a very young age, I was teaching, I knew things, and my mom would be like, how do you know all these things? I had access to higher knowledge about things, especially spiritual things that I also could not explain. I've been doing healing work, I was counseling and healing people with no qualification, with no experience and whatever, and people were healed and they were counseled. And so what basically that means is I was unconsciously in my process of ascension. And so at the age of 39, it needed to be a conscious journey. And that's when things switched. And that's when all the things that were a foundation of what I thought were my truth at that point in time had to collapse, because now you kind of like say, yes, I do. I'm now doing the mission. And that's what happened. And you also, with the starseeds, Goko, the challenge is that we come with our upper chakras typically activated. We don't struggle much here. The struggle is down there. And with the heart being the connector, obviously, of the two worlds. And so that's what happened. I needed to, because I did come with the skin, and my grounding had with the soil had to be aligned to the lineage that I chose to come through. And that was what the challenge was for me, because I knew nothing about that. And it was in that process where I had to then have some rituals that were done. And there were actually just 2 rituals. And I asked Spirit to give me an authentic healer to help me. They gave me a very, very old woman, who, she everything was so simple and so pure. It was not mixed with anything. And she categorically told me, I'm not going to twasisa you. If there's anything like that, it must come from your people. And I'm not going to give you anything to eat or to drink or to make you whatever. All what it is in Zulu, they have what they call umhlonyana. Umhlonyana is basically which is something that my mom was supposed to do for me. When you enter your puberty stage, your parents go to Umsamo and they tell your ancestors, here is Noma Temba. We don't know why she's here, but you do. We ask that you protect her. We ask that you open her knowing so that she can live life in accordance to her mission. It's a beautiful ceremony that our people used to do. And so there was never a misalignment in terms of how your life is supposed to pin out, because then your guides will come and support and show and direct on who you are and why are you here and how things are supposed to happen for you. So that's the initiation stage. And then the second stage is the absorption stage. So when you have all your chakras fully opened, there is now this free-flowing prana in you. And what that does, which I want to emphasize, right? This is an exciting but dangerous stage. because you open yourself up to spirit world. And as you know, there are different dimensions in the spiritual realms, and there are different energies that resides in these dimensions. And so when you are in the space where all of a sudden you have this, access into the spirit world, equally so, the spirit world has access to you. And this, I believe, is where some people get lost a lot. And this is where a lot of the false Kundalini snakes implant happens as well, because you might think that you are being activated with codes that are of light, but they actually are not, and they are disguised as that, because you are basically entering into an adventure. There is this calling for you to enter into it. So in my case, as I explained, because I was basically living here, my whole life, it was here, and I had to come down and come here. And so the first thing I became inquisitive of was being African, what it means. And I ventured into African spirituality and learning to be consciously aware that there's something about being a Black woman. Some things did not go right. There's a lot of trauma involved, and a lot of my healing and past life, healing work and quantum healing had to do with that for the collective and for my lineage. But my bothering with the African spirituality thing is that what happens when is I was also told I need to twasa, because I was desperate. Now I have all these energies talking to me. I see things and I don't know anything about being Black, as I know that's going to sound like I'm being coconut or whatever, but that's the truth, being Black as in practicing African rituals and cultures I didn't know anything about. And so what happens is when you go or you're consulted, a lot of, or at least those that I went to, what they pick up is they pick up the mission work that you are here to do for your lineage. And they sadly always conclude it to you being utwas, and it's not true.
Initiate,
so
just
initiate.
Got people who also don't know what that is. Who can't speak. What is the word Twasa? Is it Zulu? I don't know.
Yeah, Twasa is in Zulu. I don't know what it is in other languages.
Yes, but essentially it's to initiate, to go through a spiritual initiation, right?
To become a Sangoma. That's the full thing.
Yes, to become
I think it's important.
A shaman. Yes, initiating to become a shaman is.
Yeah, I think it's important that we qualify that. Yeah. So so that's typically what happens. That then everybody will be showered into that direction, and it's not for all of us. You are here to do your healing work, and we all have different parts that are assigned to us based on who we are and what we're here to do, so that's the adventure. I'm just saying, for people who are at the stage, please be conscious, discern, search the spirits that you are working with, because you don't want to find yourself recycling the karmic patterns of selling your soul, as they say, selling your soul to the devil, and where else you genuinely wanted to do something good, you genuinely wanted to grow and understand this whole ascension process. So people just need to be very careful there. And the second part is when you then have like a closer examination, you explore and you experience and you find all sorts of things that are happening, but then you need to come back to self, and with the assistance of your guides, it's very important to listen to them. And that's the problem with Nagogo, that I said, that's why I'm saying the absorption stage is a very dangerous stage, because so much distortions happens there. So you can even have these fallen angels masquerading as your ancestors. They literally, I had a client where this reptilian posed as her grandmother, and because we were already doing the work, she immediately was able to pick it up and curse and said it, I can see what you are. And that's when it turned into its original form. So which is what we spoke about, the Lucerian and the Satanist rituals, I will be kind of like an indication to you and for you in terms of which ground are you playing at and what are the spirits that you're playing with in that particular ground, so that you choose for yourself. You show up and choose a path that resonates with you, that talks to you, and there's so much to choose from, and then you become a seeker, and this is where you typically do a lot of spiritual rituals and spiritual grounding to assist you in the path that you have chosen. And there's a lot of practices that you can follow, but it's also possible that during this process you can lose sight of your path. And this is where the spiritual ego phase typically comes, where you are now like, look, I'm woke and you all are not. And you start. So I always say to myself, I blog a lot on Facebook. And trust me, I have a lot of meetings with my guides before I blog or even after. And the question is, why do you do it? Remember, I come from a distortion of saying I need to prove my existence, or I need to give in order to be accepted. So I'm very conscious about it. So when I blog, I do it consciously, and I always have a meeting to find out, why am I doing? Am I still seeking that attention? Am I doing it because I want people to think and see and say I'm a guru, Miss Kako, I'm up there? Or am I doing it because it's my gift to humanity based on the mission work that I'm here to do? So this is where you also will find challenges of people saying gobelas are abusing them. You have the boardroom wound, which I also blogged about, where you have, your African people climbing up the corporate ladder, but actually making it difficult for other African people to come through because they feel still operating from the spirit of lack. I must be the only one who has this. And therefore, in order for me to protect it, I must keep all you down. And it also comes through as the trauma of your ascension process, which is, what we spoke about, the dark night of the soul. And if you don't transmute and you don't heal and you're not vibrating in the frequency of love, you recreate the same cycle for your people. But if you have transmuted, you're living in the vibration of love, which I said last time when I was making comments on this presentation, to say, you say, through my stripes you are healed. So I went through the pain and had no theory. There was no program like this, and I had to find my way. But I'm doing this program because those who come after me should not struggle the same way. That's what evolution is about. You make it better for those who come after you. But yeah, so a lot of people get lost here in Agogo because of unresolved issues. And when you are persistent and consistent and you have the right support, again, I emphasize the importance of a good spiritual therapist for these stages, because then you will get the support that you require and need for you to move forward. And you finally merge back into your path. And once you do that, you move into the integration stage. And this is a stage where people will say she has lost it, because you now see the world completely differently from what other people see it. You get messages. I was laughing when because I'm so into numbers, like the universe language speaks to me so much with numbers. And I remember as a child, when you visit the Zion Church, when they were prophesying and praying, they would speak numbers. I used to think these people are crazy, but I kind of understand, they were downloading and receiving messages. And now that I'm able to, or I've remembered, I am doing that. So this is a stage where if you are not surrounding yourself with your tribe, if you're not surrounding yourself with the mind-like people, you might be very frustrated, because the people that you with are just not going to get you, and they will even probably want to institutionalize you. Because some of the conversations that I have with other healers, we would laugh and be like, if you hear us, they will send us into a mental institution, because what we're saying is just not making any logic sense. And we can go like 3 hours, with the concept, because that's how exciting it's like you putting a glass a pair of glasses. You were not seeing clearly, and you now have this, glasses, and you can now like, wow, I can see things, and it's a beautiful stage, and but it can also be overwhelming, because that's when you receive a lot of downloads. As I'm saying, you receive downloads all the time with everything, and grounding is important, and setting boundaries even to even your team, and telling them, look, I need to rest now. Self-care is important. I need to balance. You still have your other roles that you need to fulfill, etc., etc. So again, and with an assistance of a good therapist, you'll be able to even, maneuver through that stage in a proper way. And then it's your heaven on earth. And for me, your heaven on earth, your ascension is like, it's pure bliss. It's pure awareness. It's the presence of love. It's the presence of truth. It's the presence of walking into a shop and they are selling antique things, and you feel the excitement like going up and down. And people are like, what is so exciting? It's the excitement of looking into a flower and connecting it with it so much that you start crying, because it's got these healing properties that are going directly into your heart chakra. And people don't get it. So it's what it means is you are surrounded with so much love all the time, and you are able to see it, you are able to hear it, because yes, we are surrounded by love all the time, but it is until you've gone through these processes and you've removed the false lenses that you were wearing, that you start being able to do that. So when I go, the challenge is people want to create, there's the law of attraction. People want to use the law of attraction in isolation. You can't. The universal laws are working in unison. You cannot pick and choose which one you're going to use to suit your own needs. It doesn't work like that. They all apply. So for an example, you won't be able to apply the law of attraction if you're not applying the law of vibration. It just works like that. But the thing is, you cannot vibrate at a frequency if you have not, healed, and if you have not dealt with the wounds, or if you're still recycling and repeating the same. So it's a unit. It's like it's like a production line. This part of the machine does this, and this part, at the end of the day, you get a product. But to get to that final product, there are different, mechanical processes that goes through the system. And so you cannot say, oh no, I'm going to skip this one. And because the end product will not be the quality of what it is supposed to be. So that's it. That's that. And you see, when you are in your ascension state, when you are in this conscious access and this expansion state, is when I am able to show up on a day that is so difficult for me, and I'm able to say, I understand, or this is what the gift comes with my loss. So we are not going to be exempt from events and things that are happening here. That's not what fifth dimension or ascension is about, or heaven on earth, that we're now going to have our own lens. I've had people suggested that, let's create our own community, and so that we can be, honky-dory and love each other. 5DF.
Kumbaya. That's part of the program. No, oh my God. I love this conversation. I love how you broke this down so much. I'm taking this time to invite anyone who has any questions that they need to clarify. But before I read the question that's already here, I really love how you broke this down. It's like so comprehensive, and it's so vital for people to get that history, and also the inorganic programs, and how then what we need to be doing to step into organic ascension. And for me, as a psychospiritual healer, this makes me so happy, because what you just said about the desire to skip and to choose which part you get to do. This morning I woke up and I was like, it's so important for people to know you cannot manipulate divine will. You can't manipulate any of these universal laws. And if you do, there will be repercussions. somehow, because it's not even some kind of like we have a God who punishes, but it's more of, it's literally, my guides, they call it quantum mathematics. They say God is the greatest mathematician. Everything has already been put and calculated into that. It's not even that they are your ancestors marking you and say, oh, she did this right, we give her the cows. She said she wants 10,000, we'll give her because she prayed to us. No. No. The reason why you enter the state of expansion, of abundance, of love, of wisdom, it's because you did the work of creating these programs, and the reversal mother, the reversal father, and the child. All of these, everyone who's incarnated on earth has been incarnated into these programs. So you can't skip them, you can't bypass them. But of course, you can learn from a mentor how to move through the processes faster, right? But also, just what I wanted to also say for people is that sometimes I know myself back in the times when I wasn't tuned into and hadn't discerned. I wasn't practicing spiritual discernment. If I would hear anyone saying satanic and Luciferian, my body goes into a state of fear, right? And even hearing the example you spoke about of sometimes guides pretending to, sometimes fallen angelics pretending to be guides, that would be terrifying. But I just want to reiterate to people that you often get the initiation that will propel you to the next level of your ascension. So even if you do go through the false light, which, is there anyone who has gone through that? I don't think it's possible, right? So as we are coming to this great understanding of the reversal mother, father, and the child, the reversal father is one of the biggest one, because it's the one that makes people feel like, I want to manifest $10,000 by end of year. What ritual must I use? You know, I want to call in my beloved. That's what you're working with. We're working with service to self. We're working with trying to align with the will of the self, without understanding, yes, we are talking about ascension being about the self, but that self is actually the divine self, the true divine human self. Yes, you know, natural self. So understanding that this all works with the divine will and the divine laws. For those who haven't watched the first episode of this show 3 weeks back, we broke that down, these universal laws. So you can go check this out and just see how we can't be picking. You have to give yourself the time to move through the processes. You have to accept and honor that all of us, we went through a program, and we have to deprogram ourselves. Whatever your deprogramming is, if the main ones, for some people, it's like the religious deprogramming. Oh my God, I have to deprogram so much from religion. Other people, is that childhood. But most people have the childhood, you know, have to deprogram from this and so forth. So just, the importance of like not going into a state of panic once you start hearing about the false Kundalini activation, and understand, all the great teachers, me and Noma, we also went through it. And then you're like, okay, let's self-correct. Everyone goes through it, and there's no shame, but mostly it's growth, you know, it's a deeper understanding, right? And with understanding, we can forgive, we can step into forgiveness and healing, which is like, the next level, the true ascension. Okay. So first question from Claire. This is coming from YouTube, just because it's in alignment with what I was saying. How will one know that they're not dealing with a spirit of light? What are your
How will they know that they are not? I think you know, when you are embarking on your ascension stages, so as I said, the activation will happen automatically because you are starseed. And I don't want to lie, there is so much support for us. There is so much support, you know, from your guides and angels. I mean, I work a lot with angels. So you have access to so much authentic guides that are there. But not all of us have access to that, and we need to be open and be honest about that. And that's when I have found that the people that have been brought to my practice by their guides, right, are very much aligned to the path that I'm on. And even when I do their natal charts, we are here to heal similar karmic lessons and karmic debts, and we're here to do similar work and stuff like that. And those people were not preview to the information that we're sharing with, but by being guided by their guides in whatever form that it came, they were sent and matched with the person vibrating at the same frequency that was required for their own healing. So what I'm saying is, people need to learn to converse with the universe by themselves and rely less on Ugyohlola, you know, to go and ask someone to check for you and to because when you do that, it's also influenced by my own frame of reference. So I have never accepted anyone under my medicine until their guides will confirm. I'm stubborn like that. So if someone comes and I do a reading and I can see that, oh, okay, this is my client, and they know, and I'll be like, no, I want your guides to confirm. And they would either receive a message or they will dream it or whatever before I am comfortable with taking them in. So it's, what I'm saying is your ancestors have their role. They have a stake in you doing well, because as you heal yourself, you heal them. So they will never send you to a place that will not facilitate that. So that's my long answer. So I'm basically saying, try and, you know, rather cultivate your communication channel with your ancestors and your guides versus going, because I see them on Facebook, they will send you messages, they want you to interpret dreams. People are so big on dream interpretation, and and you must tell them, oh, this dream says you must go there and whatever. Avoid that. If it comes from your people, it's the safest way to go.
Yeah, I love that. So I can also offer my own ways of, this is what I teach my students as well. Like, the first thing is, what I have learned in my practice is, the more you are in the body, the more especially if you are like a star seed, like, the body, particularly the womb, connects us to the Holy Mother Acts, right? Which allows us to connect to divine wisdom, right? So if you learn and teach yourself to drop deeper and deeper into the body, most star seeds, like you said, we come with our upper chakras activated. So we prefer floating up there, going on some spiritual journey, exploring Atlantis and wherever your origins are, and just hanging out with your star family. That's cool. But in the beginning, and this is why for me, when I work with my students, I take months before I start introducing guides, because you need to heal your inner child wounding and clear them so that you can understand your body better and you can begin to hear. Because you see, the body is one of the most powerful communicator and guardian that you ever have. It will always tell you when something is wrong. That's why we talk about that gut instinct, right? So if you have a shamanic template or an oracle template, literally you have a powerful body communicator that will tune in. Right? Like, I'm at the point in my life now, even when I'm watching, like, I'm reading things on social media, I can literally see Metatronic reversals, feel them in my body, because the body's like, that's off, I don't even have to have a voice telling me, because I have learned to practice to be in the body. So the first practice I give people is learn to drop deeper and deeper into your body, right? And if it means you have to touch your body to practice, what does Joy mean by dropping into my body? Do that, right? And go and heal your inner child wounding, which helps the nervous system to not carry so much distortions that you don't recognize the distortions in front of you, right? Yes. True. And then the second thing, this only really works if you are comfortable with this, right? But the world avatar, the world spirit of our planet is Christ, right? Not necessarily the Jesus most people were taught, right? But yes, the man called Yeshua ben Joseph is our world avatar. And our ascension, we're doing it through activating the inner Christ, or the Christ consciousness, other people call it that. And this has worked for me in testing. It's asking these spirits of light that are coming to you, are you in alignment with Christ, right? Are you in alignment with the Most High, with the true, eternal, living light of Source God? Because of the law of consent and the law of the prime directive, these spirits are not allowed to lie to us. The reason that they will mask is because they want to confuse you, and so that then they can say that you consented, right? So you have to practice knowing that you have the power to say, I don't consent to any energies working with me that are not in alignment with Source, with organic ascension, with my alchemy, with the Most High God, right? You need to practice asking and commanding your space. Like in this room, no one who is inorganic is allowed. They will not come into that space. I mean, it takes time to be strong and confident in it, but that's one of the first things. You, in the same way that if someone knocks into your house, you don't just be open. You ask, who are you? Like, why are you here? What do you want? You do the same with spirit beings. Like, who are you and why are you here? How can I help? Are you here for my highest evolution? Are you in alignment with the Most High? Are you here doing this in alignment with Christos, with Christ, and so forth? I hope that makes sense.
Thank you for breaking it down, Renakop. I think it's it's very detailed. So true. I resonate with that most definitely. Yeah.
So this was asked earlier, right? At the very beginning, when you're talking about the history of ascension, right? But Roy was asking, when you shared that your origins are serious, I have a lot of people who are from the star system in my community. So he's asking, does it mean everyone is from Sirius? And can you explain a little bit more about Atlantis? I don't know if you are able to really go deeply, but just maybe in reference to the conversation of ascension, you may answer on.
I think it's if when I was preparing for this, I really asked myself, how technical do I want to go with this talk, and I think trying to answer it. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to be detailed. So it's archived historic places that we come from to help some of us that are doing the work to remember where we've been and what sort of mistakes we participated at, and what templates we are coming with. That kind of knowledge is really to assist you with that, to assist you with understanding what your greater mission and purpose is, and what is it that you come with, what is in your toolbox. It's like when you go, you've been called as a mechanic to come and fix, there's a breakdown, and you know the machine, and you need to know which tools to take or what toolbox to take to go and fix that, and it comes to you when you are ready. Let me put it like that. It's the kind of of knowledge and information that you will get when you are ready to receive it and ready to use it. So that's my quickest escape to that question, because it can get very deep and big, and
I like to think of it in the same way it exists on Earth. So if you say, I am from South Africa, and you're saying this to an alien, and they ask, is everyone from South African planet Earth? No, not everyone is really from South Africa. However, I have chosen to incarnate into the land of South Africa because of the mission that I want to do within that land and within that lineage, right? But it's also not necessarily always meaning that that's the origin of your soul.
Yeah.
Right? It's what we call starseed location. That the way I understand it, just briefly in summary, that our starseed locations that we find ourselves resonating within a particular lifetime is actually connected to the work we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Right? So I find that a lot of Black people find themselves connected to the star system called Sirius, because a lot of the energies from that star system is active in our continent, for example, because you see the stars and we are all one with these stars, and it's just all one thing. So
it's when I go, it's a portal we came through. So it's like a station when, an airport where it's a big airport where all international flights land, and then you get directed into your final destination. So it's something like that.
So not everyone is from there, but some people are from there. And yes, you might find that, everyone who comes to South Africa is likely to go through the OR Tambo, Southern Africa, the OR Tambo. It doesn't mean that that's the only route though, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. One last question, and then we're good. This conversation was so good and so big though, but you did it so well.
Thank you.
So, oils of Ali, I'm struggling to read this. Al-Kibulan. This sounds either like it's a Nigerian city. I'm probably lying, or at the same time, it may be connected to Egypt. I would love to know this. But anyway, he or she's asking, is it normal to feel overwhelmed during this journey?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Are you kidding me? You are like disrupting your whole of you, and it also depends on the time frames that you have programmed for yourself. And if you were relaxed, which in my case, in my journey, that was my case, because as I explained, everything looked good. I had no reasons for me to jump ship and to go out. So it took me a little longer, if I look into things, for me to really like take the red pill and go through. If you watch The Matrix, right, and it was only now when I watched it, I understood. I mean, when I watched that movie, I was like, what the heck is going on? But if you watch The Matrix, that's how overwhelming and uncomfortable it is. And that is why I kept emphasizing the importance of finding a therapist that will help you, because sometimes it's techniques as just fixing your breathing. Breathing is such an underlooked thing, and it's so important because we really don't breathe well. And you spoke about dropping into your body, Joy, and I speak about dropping into your heart as well. And I love that, because that's your, for me, that's your blueprint. That's where your program of why you're here is actually stored more than here. It's not in your mind, it's in your heart. And so stillness is such an important and vital part of this process. If you are unable to come into stillness, and you want to be moving and moving and moving, you are going to get very overwhelmed. So you just need to find practices that grounds you, that brings you back to you, to your stillness. But yeah, my advice is honestly, there is no reason for people to embark on this journey alone. That is a big part of my profile. You know, it's my mandate from my higher self to create a safe space for those who are going through this. And I believe that's your work as well, Gogo. So it can be very overwhelming, and you don't need to do it alone. Honestly, you don't. Yeah.
On that state of not doing it alone, I just want you to like expand a little bit on that. This is based on the question that Dumelo sent to me before this. So she's asking, in relationship to the conversation of organic ascension and self-initiations, exactly what does this mean? And I think you answered some of this, but you can just like summarize it. What does this mean for those who are new on the path of ascension and the level of support we can get? Are we wanting to do away with mentors or babellas? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Does it mean I need to figure out my own way in terms of my own initiation without human support? What are the possibilities here?
Okay, so I think we have touched, you know, in different pockets in her response. And again, coming back to, you know, the technical answer you gave to the person who says, how do I know if I'm in the right path? How do I know? I think it's a similar question. And honestly speaking, I think what we're saying is the answer is within you. And if you start dropping more into you, you will know. You know, the knowing is in you. So invest your. So the whole purpose of doing this, right, is we're saying, you don't have to wait for a miracle. You don't have to wait for things to fall apart. So this, in actual sense, should be part of a curriculum in a school. If spiritual, it's what it was. So spiritual ascension, as I said earlier on, it was a way of life. You know, bring one with yourself and one with source and one with creation. Remember, that's the bigger mission. That's the big purpose of this. So it was really a way of life, and all the lessons that were passed down either through conversations or by observing were cultivating that way of life. So it's actually something that that is why we have curriculums. That's why we have programs, we have schools that are orientating us into going back into that kind of living. So we need to demystify. People must move away from wanting to make it a wow phenomenal or an extreme or dramatic thing. What we're saying is we're moving away from that. That was the Piscean age where it was a pocket of information only known by certain people, and therefore you always, for example, needed a pastor to pray for you, or a pastor to teach you the word, or a pastor to tell you this is wrong and this is right. We are out of that era, and we are now in the era where the veil is so thin for us to access this universal library where we are being orientated back to our organic self. So start where you can start. I always say, you know, I love the scripture in the Bible that says, Moses, what is in your hand? When he had this overwhelming mission to go and release the Israelites from Egypt, and he was overwhelmed. I have no weapon, I have nothing. Those people are masters. And God said, what's in your hand? And he only had a staff. So I always say, when it comes to spiritual awakening, when it comes to spiritual growth, anything that demands you more than what you already have, for me, is you need to be aware of that, because it is not meant to be a process that is difficult for you to have access of. So start where you are, and it doesn't matter how small or little, listen to the inner voice. You know, it might be going and attending a meditation class, or going and attending and you have so many free classes that you offer, Babo. We have so many, you know, this other day I said to you, gosh, if I look at your writing and the material that you produce that you give for free, honestly speaking, anyone who lives in this area will not have an excuse of why they didn't know this and why they didn't understand or whatever. There is so much that we are doing as those who have agreed to come the mission. You need to start there and you build from there, and you will know which path to take. So we are not here to, I think what we're saying is, we need to differentiate between ascension and initiating as a something. Those are two different things. And I think somehow there has been a mix-up to make them one thing. They are not. So let's separate the processes. And if it happens that, because I said, once you absorb and integrate, you then become preview or, you know, have access to the gifts that you came with, and they start working, and you will know, are my gifts for the public, or are my gifts for my family, or are these gifts just for me? You will know. So let's avoid all rushing to become a something, but let the focus be more of to become a who that I am, to connect with God light and God love. Then you start creating from there. That's my humble opinion.
I love that answer. It's like particularly the differentiation between ascension and going to become a shamanic practitioner, right? Or ukutwasa, to go, is for those who are meant to then heal other people. And what is super important is important is for us to understand that logic must also be part of the spiritual ascension that we're in.
Definitely.
So if we look at this like the way that we went to university, right? So for people who generally just want to, for example, work in the medicine sciences, right? They go and learn general medical information whatsoever. And then for the surgeon, you know, who wants to specialize, they go for further training. Right? And if we imagine that ascension is just the general thing everyone is doing, it doesn't even matter who you are. Everyone actually in the world is ascending. Right? It's just that we're in different classes. But everyone is ascending. And then there are those who may need to become specialists because that's their mission, right? And in that regard, yes, in the further training, you may need a mentor, right? Or not at the same time. There are those who their mentorship will be spirit. But the truth is, because of the mess that has happened, because of everything we spoke about, most of us at some point, we need guidance, we need mentorship. The important discernment being the importance of asking yourself, if you're going to this mentor to go get the answers, or you're going to go through a facilitation, like this mentor is going to facilitate your own organic ascension or training that you need to take as a practitioner, right? So the issue becomes when people are doing it just for the sake of doing it, and when we put the authority onto our mentors or the gobelas that they are responsible for the healing, or that they know everything that you need to go through, without you knowing that, no, they're supposed to guide you and create a space for you to go through process of your own inner awakening, inner guidance with spirit. And they may take you through processes that they know because of that experience, right? But they're not super different from you. It's just experience that they have, just like professors in universities, right? That helping us learn things that, because they've been teaching for a while, right? But they're not any different from us. Later, we can end up teaching in the same school as them, right? No big deal, I don't really believe in the, like, we don't need gobelas anymore. We need a resurrection of the organic truth, and like bringing in more light into these practices and deeper understanding, and the balance that you beautifully like broke down, the balance of the feminine and masculine in our teachings, the spiritual teachings and so forth. So I hope that really clarifies. Oh, this conversation is
we
so
have to we have to go.
Thank you so much. I know everyone who's here is so grateful for your teaching. What was interesting, Coco, is that we had a lot of people actually at YouTube, and the chat was really activated. So I really hope you go check out the YouTube, because
I can't wait.
So many people here who are so grateful. I see Sarah here coming all the way from the Netherlands.
Oh my goodness,
She
that is so beautiful.
Grateful, and she brought in some of her tribe that here, and just different people coming in from Botswana, from South Africa, and everywhere else in the world. So thank you so much for this transmission. Already people are like, I would really like to know more about the River Mother and Father, but I really believe that's like part 2, and I would definitely invite you again as we're building this library. So look out for her return, maybe in season 3, season 4, we will see. It will happen as it's aligned. But I am so grateful for your transmission, for your wisdom. I've never seen someone breaking down the Ascension in such simple ways. Like, I was like, this is so good. It's so beautiful. Right. So one last question, Gogo. Maybe you can share with people how they can connect with you, your like the different offerings that you have, if they want to work with you.
Thank you. I always advise people that when you want to work with someone, try and figure out their heart. And I think my Facebook page, which is called Noma Wellness, is a brilliant starting point. I have literally, captured my ascension journey in the most simplest way. How I write, I look at it, I go and read, and I laugh. I'm like, oh, this is where I started. And so it's so beautiful to watch yourself evolve. So I advise people, go there, and if you connect with me, there's ways in which you can then make physical connection with me, and then we take it from there. But I think simplicity is so powerful, and this is the whole point. And one day we're gonna wake up and laugh at ourselves and be like, yo, I can't believe we complicated life so much. There's a scripture in the Bible, it says exactly that. God made us plain and simple, and we complicated ourselves. And we are basically just bringing back that simpleness. And it's really a beautiful place to love and to be loved and to feel it and to see it and to give it. So thank you so much, Gogo, for having me here. And I really respect your work. I respect the energy that you put into it, and the compassion that you have. You're really one of the people that inspires me to want to do this. And it's so lovely to have shared a space with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this transmission, for saying yes. You can definitely check her. I believe you're both in Instagram and Facebook, so yes, you can check her there. And also you can just go to my website under our speakers. You will be able to see a little bit more up on her bio, as well as the link to her Facebook page if you didn't hear properly, and you can click from there. And so that wraps the stages of Ascension. I hope that spoke to you. Please let us know. In our platform, we are on YouTube, as well as podcast on Spotify, on Apple and Anchor. So you can just also share this powerful transmission with people you know who will appreciate this. I will really be grateful if you could do that, because really this will really help our fellow starseeds and genetic path cutters to get in the organic ascension. So please share, support our show in that way. We are doing this every Thursdays at 5 p.m. So I will see you next week. Good night.
Bye, Coco. Have a great evening.